My name is Seth and I am a composer, a fiddle player and an educator. I specialise in traditional music styles but bringing them into the more contemporary sounds. I picked up the fiddle at age 7 and I started learning classically, having lessons at school, and then it was a bit later, I was about 8 or 9 when I started getting into folk music and composition through that as well. I realised, I could learn all the technique in classical lessons, but actually it was so much more fun to just make up my own patterns and cells and songs and combine that with what I was learning in lessons. So I studied lessons at school, I did all the conventional classical ABRSM grades, and then I went to conservatoire. Now I picked Birmingham Conservatoire in particular because it's the only conservatoire when you can study technology as your first study instrument. So I still had all the BMA's classical training, and rather than having lessons strictly on my instrument, although I did have that as well, I also had lessons in composition and production and recording. It was a very creative degree, so it was basically a composition degree using technology for recording. So I found that to be the perfect way of combining proper classical training with composition and then still studying fiddle and general musicianship as well. In the folk scene, to start off with, a guy called Joe Broughton, who was a fiddle player that I heard playing. He plays kind of fusion folk music, and I'd been studying violin for so long, and then I heard this sound and was like, whoa, you can do that with a violin! That sounds incredible. It's like a different sound world. So that sparked my journey, and then of course I've specialised now in traditional English and Welsh folk music as well, and listen to a lot of contemporary artists in that genre. I was drawn to composition with the freedom that brings, and that sense of having no boundaries in terms of music and style and how to express the world around me. A tool of expression without having the need for words, essentially, to express a certain feeling or mood or time or place. My work tries to capture a specific moment of a place. And that's something that's always been important in folk music, is a sense of place and regionality. So, we can take like a 17th century tune that's composed in one particular village in Gloucestershire, for instance. You look a few miles down the road and they'd play a completely different tune. And these places would be so separated. And in our music today, I think that's something that's so important to preserve, is this sense of regionality as the world becomes more and more influenced from different places. I think that's so brilliant to take on all these different sounds, but we need a sense of identity in our own music. So my craft tries to capture that, like an essence of one moment. It's like, what makes that piece of music unique to hear, or that feeling and sound world. The biggest thing that shapes me as a composer is performing with other musicians as well. I feel like everything I learn is from other people. That's the way music should be, and that's the way we sort of push our music through hundreds of years. It's just either listening, or for me also playing and bouncing off other people and learning their ideas and then reinterpreting things in different contexts. So I think bouncing off other people, and then, as I mentioned earlier, this sense of place that we try and tie into everything. I often use a narrative as a spark to ignite a new creative idea. Yeah, I started composing as soon as I'd got into folk music and that more creative side of things. Even before then, actually, my way of learning music has always been writing music. So even if whatever I'm trying to do to push my craft, I use composition as a tool for bettering my playing, my practice, and developing new skills. And then writing music down, similarly, when I was about 10 or 11, and have been evolving things since then, and started with more fragments, and then moved more into arrangement, arranging for a couple of instruments, or like I write for a 14-piece band a lot of the time, which is good fun as well. I haven't composed for flute and guitar as a duo, no, so it was really exciting to me, because I've written for guitar and flute within a wider ensemble context. So yeah, I was very excited to write for that particular combination and explore the sound world that you create. Yeah, so Bridge 12 is the name of a bridge. So we're currently on the River Lee. It's got a very long, rich history. So of course this river leads into the River Thames in East London, and it goes way up north into Bishop's Stortford and Stansted Abbots. And historically this would have been a trade route with all the massive ships coming up the river, and a real home for industry. Of course now the canals and the rivers in London have evolved to, their role is completely different in our society. They're no longer a place for industry. They're a place for recreation or getting a bit of green space. We find this really interesting meeting point along the canals and the rivers in London. Of you can get a feel for its industrial past, but now, there might be a primary school, or there might be a nightclub, and it's this real meeting pot of all walks of life, and you can never quite know what's around the corner or where things are going to take you. So Bridge 12 is in Hackney Wick, so that's where I was when I composed the tune, which is this particularly strange melding pot of these industrial warehouses that now people live in, but at the same time there's this lovely primary school, and there's these weird fancy coffee shops, and it's a real mixed area. And I was just trying to capture the hubbub and essence of that, but at the same time the stillness and tranquility that you feel when you're on the river, slightly removed from it all, this kind of other world that you feel a part of, but in a way secret to. So yeah, when I was composing Bridge 12, whenever I write music, it's strongly melody focused. So I begin with a melody and then see how that develops, and writing accompanying patterns and working from there. But I wanted to get across this sense of movement, but also, like I say, that sense of separation and tranquility away from it all, and try and convey those two things at the same time. So at times the melody feels like it's always moving, it's rolling along, but also it's got that slightly wonky feeling, so you don't quite know where it's going to go, and that's trying to represent the slightly unexpected nature of this melding pot of people and societies all in a small little condensed space. But yeah, it was really exciting to explore those textures and how the melody could be passed between guitar and flute. That's something that I've learned a lot from my own work playing with a guitarist as well, is I always find it interesting to switch the roles around. It's easy for the fiddle or the flute to play the tune and the guitar to accompany more, but what are the ways to flip that on its head? Like, how can a single line instrument also act as an accompaniment? Or sometimes, if you can't play chords, then that often has to be through the use of texture or some kind of supporting lines that feel like they're not interrupting what's going underneath. It's always an interesting paradox of accompanying on a high up single line instrument. So that was something I wanted to look at in Bridge 12 with the more the use of textural sounds and things like that as well. Outside of music, I love the outdoors, so I'm just trying to cycle everywhere I can and going on big long walks. I spend a lot of time in Wales, so a couple of years ago I walked the entirety of the Welsh coastline, which took about 2 months, and now I spend half the year in London as a freelance musician, and then the other half of the year I spend in North Wales writing the music for a circus. So I perform in the circus and then write the music for all the acts. I guess that's still music based, but it feels quite outside of music because we've got to build the tents, we've got to tow all the caravans. It's quite a wider extracurriculum music. My upcoming projects as a performer myself are with I've got 2 duos. One is Tightrope Moon, which is this electronic ethereal soundscapes, and then the other is Filkin's Drift, which is a fiddle and guitar, more traditional English and Welsh crossover music. So we are touring in February and March. Following that, I'm back to the circus for 6 months on the road with the circus. Yeah.